Shalom, everybody. We're lucky to have Zach join our band tonight and sing so beautifully with us. Excited for his new adventures coming up at Penn this coming year. So very, very excited for you and glad to have you. Dearest gentle congregants. Now, if any of you are Bridgerton fans, there you go. You may know that one of the defining elements of the show is the great public clamoring for the best bits of gossip in the town. Now, if you're not familiar with the show, it is a British pseudo-period drama about making matches amongst young men and women in society, focusing especially on the adult children of one family, the Bridgertons, and their adventures and misadventures in the marriage market. And while that may sound proper, just a content warning that it is a bit risque, so don't watch with the kids, or with the parents, as the case may be. That did happen to me. Thanks, COVID. Anyway, the gossip comes from a regular circulation of a tabloid by one Lady Whistledown, describing the most interesting and scandalous moments from society balls and outings, who for the first few seasons of the show is anonymous. So while I won't spoil anything for you in case you want to watch, in the most recent season, the previously anonymous writer of the tabloid decides to call it quits to get on with her life. But her biggest fan, the Queen, refuses her request as her hunger for this gossip is just too great to quit it cold turkey. And I dare say that in our own communities, in the real world, the hunger for gossip is not any less intense than the Queen's in Bridgerton. We love to hear stories about what is happening in people's lives outside of our own. The drama, the insanity, the scandal of it all. It keeps us entertained and aware of the excitement that is happening all around us and can make our lives feel just a little bit less drab. But as the author of the tabloid finds throughout the show, the line between juicy gossip that is simply fun and gossip that can shatter a person's future is a fine one. Because of this, nobody really wants to end up in a Whistledown article. Indeed, once her identity is revealed, many come to her with tears in their eyes to beg her not to share their story in her tabloid. A little gossip may spice up our own lives, but sometimes it can ruin others. And in the rabbinic tradition, certain types of gossip not only have consequences for the object of the gossip, but also very real consequences for those doing the gossiping. On the face of it, our Torah portion this week, Tazria Metsora, is a difficult parsha to find deep meaning in. It contains instructions on skin diseases, emissions, blights of homes, the stuff of medicine or biology or home renovation, not spirituality or the connection to the divine. And yet the Torah is very concerned with these outbreaks, especially one called tzara'at, an affliction of the skin, and sometimes even of homes, not simply for the people who experience them, but for the spiritual health of the entire community. This is because anyone experiencing these symptoms is considered tameh, ritually unfit for entering the sanctuary and offering any sacrifice. And furthermore, their state can spread to others and make others unfit, much like an infectious disease, threatening the entire system of godly service. And this is why they don't call a doctor or a healer to examine their condition, but rather they call a Kohen, a priest, to do the inspection and determine whether their symptoms are tzara'at or not, and provide the appropriate remedy. The Torah itself, however, does not delve into the underlying cause of the affliction, just its appearance and cure. This leaves an opening for our rabbis to uncover the deeper cause of the ailment. In the Midrash on this portion, they reread this obscure word for one who has the disease, a Metsora, as a contraction of the words motzi shem ra, meaning one who brings out a bad name in others. Essentially, they connect harmful gossip to this physical expression in the body. Not just that, but they raise the stakes of what it means to speak badly about someone else. The rabbis in the Midrash claim that one who speaks negative gossip is perhaps even worse than someone who kills someone. Hyperbole a little bit. But why? Because bad speech harms not just the object of the speech, but also the person speaking it and the one who listens to it. This is not simply a word game, but it also relies on proof from another part of the Torah. In a scene in the book of Bamidbar, or Numbers, Miriam speaks against her brother Moses about his leadership and choice of wife, and then is afflicted by God with tzara'at as punishment, putting her out of the camp for a week. This moment in the Torah seems to be the first time that the reality of this skin punishment appears on a person, and it comes on the heels of a smear campaign against Moshe. Throughout this rabbinic analysis of the cause of the disease, a verse from Proverbs shows up again and again. Quote, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Our Jewish tradition puts such a strong emphasis on the ability of speech to heal and to harm. The world itself was created by God through speech. And we, in the image of God, have been given a piece of that power to create and destroy all through the choice of our words. When we tell ourselves we are not responsible for our words, when we imagine that only sticks and stones can hurt, we forget the immense power we have when we speak, not just to hurt, but also to heal. Indeed, the beginning of the healing process for this affliction happens when the priest pronounces that an affliction is or is not tzara'at. In this way, the physical reality is not enough. We need someone to speak into the world that something is wrong in order to begin the process of healing. Speech may have caused this illness, but it is simple, constructive, repairing speech by the priest that will eventually lead to its cure. And while the rabbis emphasize the deep harm that has caused this disease, the Sfat Emet, who's one of the great Hasidic commentators on the Torah, sees also a positive possibility inherent in the discomfort of this affliction. While a person may be rendered unfit for the sanctuary and require a process of leaving the camp in purification, the disease itself is also a wake-up call to a person that they have been blind to the harm that they've done to others. Once the priest examines them and confirms their status, the physical purification process becomes a spiritual opportunity to reflect on how the person may have hurt those around them through their speech. In other words, the physical signs are not just a punishment, but a spiritual opportunity for tshuva and change. And so, while we may never end the human desire for a bit of juicy gossip from Lady Whistledown, in our own lives, we can reflect on the power we have to affect others when we speak. Talk may be cheap among some, but our mission as Jews and human beings is to make talk matter. To realize that words, while ethereal and non-physical, have consequences for our fellow human beings. We can remind ourselves of the times when we have been the subject of negative speech or attacks, and remember the pain that caused us, so that we are mindful not to do that to others. We can discern also between harmless gossip and painful gossip. And we can remember that even though speech has the power to damage, it also has the power to heal. To speak when we see something wrong and begin the process of setting it right. And even without priests to tell us, we can admit when we've missed the mark. Take a step back to reflect on how we behave and use our gift of speech for good. Who knows? We may be able to see our affliction as a blessing after all. Shabbat shalom.